Hey, welcome to Manalizing. This is where men talk about the kind of stuff that men don't talk about. Put your hard hat on, get ready for a ride. Here we go. Welcome to Manalizing. I'm Garth Haslam. In this episode, I'm talking to another one of the coolest dudes in the universe. This guy is TJ Mclellan. He's a former Army veteran, and yes, he's got some PTSD, and he's going to talk about that, what happened and what it did to him, and what he chose to do about all of the above, and how he's managing in today's environment now that he's out of the military. You look at TJ, he's a very fit sort of a guy. You don't have to spend very long with him before you go, man, this is a cool dude. You know, this is the kind of dude that we all want to hang out with. And this, if you've listened to some of my podcasts before, you understand, you know what I'm going to say next. This is a guy that, despite the fact that he appears to have everything, he's got demons. Here's the interview. Welcome to Manalizing. I'm Garth Haslam, and we've got TJ Mclellan. What does TJ stand for, dude?
That's actually my first name. So my parents gave me two letters as a first name. And they tell me that they were watching a show called TJ Hooker, and that's where my first name came from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's, what's his name? He played Captain on Star Trek.
Yep, and it's William Shatner.
Yeah, that's right. The overactor. Let's introduce you. So who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
So my name's TJ Mclellan. Currently, I'm the broker of a company called Fitness Realty. So it's a real estate company. We help people buy and sell homes. We just incentivize healthy living lifestyle. So if you guys are ever interested in that, that's all. What I do is help people foresee their goals and dreams and help them acquire homes and investment properties and things like that.
Are you you're in the Salt Lake area?
So I'm in Utah County in Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
We have staff members from St. George to Logan, so we can pretty much service anyone in Utah. So if anybody's ever looking for an investment property or their first house or they're downsizing or anything like that, that's what we do.
Right. And you and I go back 1,000 years. We've been best friends since second grade, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If second grade was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
My
wife
actually
does
feel
tell
like
me.
though we're just like fast friends. When I was listening to you in the class, I was like, man, this guy's really cool. And then obviously we've just been chit-chatting and getting things going. So yeah.
My wife tells me I'm 5, so I wouldn't even be in second grade yet. But yeah, we met a few weeks ago as when one of my home inspector trainees, I got him trained, so let's just call him one of my home inspectors, wanted me to do a mold class. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't do home inspections anymore. Why do I want to do this?
Right.
But to help him, I showed up, and it turned out to be a good thing because I met you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And
I really appreciate that.
And it's kind of funny. It's all the things that you do and you don't expect it to mean anything that end up being the most valuable. But the reason I'm going down this road is I've known you for a few weeks. We did an interview, a week or so ago, where you interviewed me for your podcast. That's about how well we know each other.
Yeah.
And this is important because, a lot of these interviews, they go deep. They're kind of scary sometimes in ways. And it's not because I vet a whole bunch of people. I bring almost random dudes on and just find out what their damage is.
Yeah.
And we all have damage. All of us. And it's crazy. Yeah, I had, as I've talked about in some of the other podcasts, I had my moment where I was planning my suicide. And at this point, I'm pretty glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Let's get these guys to know who you are.
Yeah. So a little background about me. I've been married almost 17 years, which is awesome. something that me and my wife do on every anniversary is we say, should we try for one more? Like, should we just keep going, or how's this working out?
Uh-huh.
And so we've done that countless year, or not countless, but almost 17 years now.
Uh-huh.
We have 4 kids together, and ranging from ages of 15 to 3, which is just kind of wild. Having somebody in the house that's driving that's not me or my wife is kind of weird. And so that kind of feels funky. But I've been in Utah for a long time in my life. I was born in Idaho, but grew up mostly in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually did 9 years worth of active duty military in the Air Force, at a base called Seymour Johnson, which is in North Carolina. And while I was there, deployed a lot, and we'll get into some deployment stories. But while I was there, I got kind of overqualified, so I got stuck at this base, because I saw a lot of my friends. They would get orders and they would go to another base, and then they would get orders to come back before I had gone anywhere. And so I was kind of stuck there, which was just kind of aggravating or whatever. And then there was a time where I started selling real estate out there. And then my mom was like, why don't you sell real estate here in Utah? And so this whole plan came out, like, let's get out of active duty military. And my wife was also like, hey, you should take me home, like, let's go back to Utah. And so it was kind of exciting to just make sure that she was feeling like her opinion mattered, and get her back to where she feels more comfortable. But yeah, anyway, so I'm still in the National Guard, so I'm still doing some military service there. I've deployed one time with that unit, and done a bunch of like TDYs and stuff all over the globe.
What's a
Um,
TDY?
it's like a temporary duty assignment. So it's like, if you did like 3 days in Spain or a couple days in Canada. So we've just done a bunch of tours like that. This particular unit that I'm with, the KC-135 unit, they're a tanker unit, which just means they're like a mobile gas station for fighters and other heavy aircraft. And they also do some transport with passengers. I was about to say packs because that's what we call passengers.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to try to like limit my lingo. But anyway, we can transport passengers as well. But these tankers go everywhere across the globe, which is very exciting for me because when I was active duty, it's a F-15 unit there at Seymour Johnson, which is fighters, and fighter aircraft never go anywhere good because they can't really fly long range. So they need tanker support to get close to wherever we're going to be, which is usually in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
um, because you have to be close to have that kind of air support. And so when I transferred to this tanker unit, the TDYs got a lot more interesting because it was like, hey, we're going to Guam for 40 days, or we got to go to Canada to pick up some packs or passengers, and then we got to go to Michigan and drop them off and then come home, or we're going to fly like Hawaii to Guam to Hawaii and back. So it's just way more exciting to be in a tanker unit because the tankers go everywhere and fighters go to the desert. So I
Right.
like this unit a lot better. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I mean, I've been running our company for quite a while now, almost 5 years. Just doing the family man thing, doing the rental property stuff. I actually converted my whole life to fit that mold now, where instead of teaching it from a book on how to invest in real estate, I'm actually living it. So I'm having the firsthand knowledge and experience there.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw
all, all,
your billboard on the freeway.
yes, nice.
Yeah, I don't do home inspections anymore, but I do structural inspections. The difference
Mhm,
is that, structural engineer. So
nice.
I drive a lot still.
Yeah.
Put a lot of miles on the Jeep. I
Fair.
love that Jeep. But
Nice.
yeah, I saw the ad and I thought, okay, that's unique. How do you merge fitness with real estate? I'm like, do you give free passes to your clients to use your gym? How does that work?
Great question. One day we want to have an office next to a gym so people can just go over to the gym that use our services.
Uh-huh.
Since we're not there yet, we incentivize everybody on our staff. So agents that are with me, if they commit to drinking water, walking more, go to the gym, it could be a yoga class, or they could pray more, or have some spirituality item. Anything to make them the strongest version of themselves qualifies them to get a better commission split from me. And then for all of our general public and our clients, if they commit to doing something of the same kind, whatever it is to make them a strongest version of themselves, they get a commission rebate or a commission discount, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that
So
is cool.
usually it's a couple grand. So if let's say a first time home buyer, this is kind of the easiest way to equate it. First time home buyer comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to buy my house. I'm looking in the $300,000 to $400,000 range." Um, and they're like, "Hey, I want to commit to continuing to go to the gym." Then we actually give them that commission rebate right back into their pocket when they close. And so on a $300,000 house, they're going to put about $1,500 into their pocket, in savings, just to continue to go to the gym or drink water or quit smoking is one of the ones that's a big one that we've had
Uh-huh.
in the past. And so it's just something that really gets people excited to grab their life by the horns and do something different.
Right.
And they're all incentivized. We're all incentivized by money anyway, so it kind of helps.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, and I'm thinking there's a guy in Tennessee who right now who's going, "Man, why is he not here?" And I think you ought to franchise that, but that would be a discussion for another day.
Yeah, well, on that topic, we are trying to franchise. We are looking at Virginia currently and Texas, but not Tennessee specifically. But one day we're going to be nationwide, just because everybody kind of needs something in their life to do that. I mean, kind of piggybacking on what you said earlier about we all have damage.
Uh-huh.
Some of that damage I feel can be like coped with becoming the strongest version of ourselves, whatever that looks like. And that's what we're trying to promote, you
Coped
know, that.
with is an interesting word choice. Pretty much every podcast that I do, we
Mhm,
men, we're trash compactors.
mhm,
Something nasty comes along and we don't know how to deal with it. We generally can't go to the wife.
mhm,
You can't if you're especially if you're married, you can't go to any other woman,
mhm. Yeah,
and you're not gonna go to another man.
right.
So, cope means we shove it down. We're trash compactors,
Yeah,
and we just keep doing that until the compactor blows up, and then we damage either ourselves or somebody else. Always the
right,
wrong person, always the person who doesn't deserve it, and,
right,
then we get labels like toxic or whatever.
right.
Um So cope isn't, cope can be a good word, but you're right. We men cope and not in a good way.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that coping for men looks different for everyone, and I feel like we tend to use the escape route more often, like drinking or working too much or whatever, like trying to make a disconnect. And I think um we really need connection, so that's why I'm excited to be here too, is to just connect and share some things and stories, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. You're dead on right. Connection is what it's all about. It's hard to connect with Jack Daniels, even though a lot of us try.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a time in my life that I was down that road. I used to be a drinker in the past, and not that I had anything really bad going on. It just felt like my sphere and network, we were all like, well, every weekend we're just going to party and black out and try to forget about everything, and then come to work on Monday and just think everything's going to be honky dory, and nothing really changes.
Yeah, I did an interview with a guy, Mark, who who was ex-military, and he says he would try to make sure that he fell asleep drunk because when that happened, he didn't dream. When he did
Hmm.
dream, he dreamed about some of the horror scenes from his military days, And
Right.
he didn't want that going through his brain, so he tried to just be as drunk as possible when he went to bed.
Hmm.
Sad.
Oh, and yeah, it's super sad. There's a lot of that actually. I feel like just because the military isn't, they're trying to be better about taking care of us coming back from deployments and things like that, but the weight of the mental side, I think, is so big, and we don't really understand that side as well as I think that we want to. More people should really be um having these kind of discussions. So that's why, like, I think that it's super important, and like your work and what you're doing is super important, creating those connections and letting other people have a place and a space that feels safe to tell their story, for one, and number two, to hear other people's stories, to know that we're not all by ourselves, as men, like you said, we're trash compactors. um it doesn't have to be that way, like, I don't know when it actually shifted where we actually just shoved it all down, and maybe society's been telling us for a long time, like, you're not supposed to deal with that. You're just supposed to, like, push through, never cry, never talk about it. Um, and I don't really know when that shifted, but I know um in the past, I've heard from people that they were able to have their buddies or whatever, and have more of a connection. I think the connections are all lost right now, and I don't know where that kind of shifted. And I'm kind of rambling on that point, but trying to get it across that um really what I feel like that people need is that connection and that space to talk to each other without judgment, right?
Right.
um because because we're humans, always judge, like we all have that. I'm going to say some stories in here, and people will jump to conclusions and judge, and that's just the nature of human nature, like we
Mhm.
are developed that way because we judge instantly, and then the mind can process, it's always the try to keep ourselves alive kind of mentality,
Right.
so I feel like the space to connect, though, is vital. So anyway, I'm
Yeah.
just happy to be here to talk about it.
Let's do that. Yeah, the connection. And by the way, the motto for the podcast is men
Mhm.
talking about what men don't talk about.
Okay.
And that's pretty much everything. I mean, sports. Other than that.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's fair.
So let's go down your road.
Mhm.
You want to talk about a moment when you were deployed? What did that look like? And more importantly, what did it do to you?
So, this is kinda weird. When I joined, I didn't really, nobody's like, "Oh, I'm gonna deploy," like, that's what I wanna do. But
Hmm.
when you join, like, that's the job, your name's on the dotted line. So, when I got in, it took about 18 months, almost 2 years to get trained, and then, I was in rotation for my first deployment. So my
Hmm.
first deployment was in 2007 to, Bagram Air Force Base.
That's in Iraq, right?
Um, it's in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So Bagram's like a little ways out from Kabul, separated by some mountains, I think is where if you get geographic on it.
Hmm.
But Bagram's a pretty small base, in comparison to like large bases here in the US. So I'd say in like area square footage, it might have 3 miles, or it might be 3 miles across, something like that. Anyways, pretty small base. It feels like an island, and especially when you're a maintainer like I was. So I was a crew chief on F-15s. Um, when you're a maintainer, you don't really ever get a chance to go outside the wire. And at that time, we wouldn't have wanted to, anyways, because it was definitely war, and that's where you could get killed, of course. And so we felt like our duty was to serve and provide air support for all the military members that were outside the wire. But you kind of get desensitized there because there was a lot of mortars that were coming in and hitting the base. I don't know if I always kind of said every other day it just felt like it was every other day. It might have been longer, could have been shorter, because it just all the time kind of gets weird. Because when you deploy, you kind of forget about everything else except for working, eating, sleeping, working out, and rinse, repeat.
Uh,
Um, so there's not a time where you're like not worried about getting hurt, or getting killed that day, so it's just always on the back of your mind. Eventually you get desensitized though, because there were times where we would have sirens going off that we were getting attacked, and we would still be marching off to the chow hall, because it was like, well, I need chicken, and if today's my day, then let it be my day. It's just part of the cards we drew. And
mhm.
that feels weird to say, and I've had people, after I say that, they're like, how can you let your mind get to that point where you don't really value yourself? And I'm like, well, it's not that I don't value myself, it's that if if it's in the cards that day, then that's okay. I've made peace, like, if it's time for me to see my maker, then that's it too. If it's like, if it's me and my buddy and we're both walking and we hear a mortar and we both lay down and one of us goes, like, that was just the day. And so when I say that though, um, most people don't know what that feels like. And so they feel weird when I say something like that. And so for people that are out there and when they're listening to this, if they feel weird, or if you feel weird about it, that's just the way war and the way the human mind works, I feel like, is you can become desensitized to that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I from what I've seen, I've not been to war myself, but from what I've seen, that's the mildest of conditions. Um,
right,
I see guys that are going, yeah, I killed him, but I had to, so oh well.
right. Yeah, oh, 100%.
And
We oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say we had a lot of so our mission there was to launch and recover our F-15s, and they were coming back empty of munitions, like every sortie.
Mhm.
And which just means they were dropping every bomb and shooting all of the bullets out of the gun that they could possibly do. Sometimes that was a lot of like they were still maintaining training out there, because they still needed to fulfill their like requirements of shooting the gun and aiming it and all that. But
Right.
a lot of the time on the other receiving end was a human life, and so when you realize, okay, we just dropped like all these munitions, and we all have these, we call them bullets. We have these bullet statements in all of our like EPRs and OPRs that are all like how much good you did for the Air Force. But there are like lines of bullets in my performance reports that are like dropped 6,000 pieces of munitions or whatever, like I'm just paraphrasing, um, while we were in Afghanistan. And all I can really see now is on the receiving end of that was how many people, which is they all want to kill us anyways while we were there. But so it was a justified cause, in my opinion, to make
Right.
sure that it doesn't come home. But there was a lot of lives lost, and that kind of feels gross, like the bullet statement on my performance reports is supposed to sound awesome and cool, but when you really look at the other side of that coin, it's kind of ugly and disgusting, and that's just war,
Right.
you know.
And I've been there to a very small degree with you. Back in the day, as I was bouncing around as an engineer, one of the things that I did was I went from working on roads and bridges and highways
Hmm.
to working on rocket motors.
Oh wow.
And I started in the Pegasus program, and that was a very peaceful thing. And then they moved me to another rocket motor, and I realized at
Hmm.
that time, if my work gets used, then millions of Russians will die,
Mm.
and if it doesn't get used, then it was a waste. And I thought, this sucks.
Right. Oh,
And
that's so hard.
it was a little bit surprising to me that I actually cared how I earned my paycheck.
Hmm.
Uh, I always thought back in engineering school that it's like you go get a job, you get as much as you can, you come home, you feed your family, you buy the car, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Uh, I realized that's not the case. So then I ended up ditching all that and doing the home
Hmm.
inspector thing, and that was quite a bit better for me because I could see how I could help lives. But yeah,
Right.
I get that. There's a certain amount of guilt, uh, and there shouldn't be, just being involved in that sector because you know that people are dying.
Right.
But yeah, I don't want to take that all war is a problem sort of a mentality because it's not. I mean,
Right.
if there wasn't somebody there to defend, we'd be run by Hitler or somebody like
Right.
him.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It is like the one of the most essential pieces that we have, but yeah, it definitely serves its purpose, but it has mental and physical restraints, coming back. But
Yeah.
this brings me to, though, while I was there, um and this is kind of one of the pieces I feel like every man should really have a person that they can connect with, that isn't their wife, that is another man, that you can really like confide in and share stories and be vulnerable. Because I have a buddy of mine that we've deployed twice together, and just one of my best friends right now, and his name's 09. And we've always just been able to connect and been able to talk through problems, discuss things with each other, um, talk about issues. And there was a time when, on my first rotation, me and him were actually playing video games all the time in this hallway, in our dorm room area, or not dorm room area, but like in our B hut area, which is just, it's basically a doghouse that we live in. It's just plywood, which doesn't give you much shelter, by the way. Just, it's kind of weird to think like I'm living in this doghouse, and they feel like little 8x8 cells of plywood. Anyway,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
feels weird. The point is, though, my buddy, '09, and I, we just got really close together, and just saw eye to eye a lot on things and really connected. Um, but I think it was our second rotation there, I'm pretty sure, because we were in dorms at that point. So our second rotation there, we're in dorms, we're in this hallway, we're always playing video games together, just really enjoying each other's company. And we had this really, just one of those disheartening moments in life when something else happens to somebody else and you feel helpless.
Hmm.
And so in our dorm room, we had 8 of us in there, and my bunkmate, who slept right on top of me, um, or right above me, um, well, he committed suicide in one of the hangars and in front of his supervisor. And so we had gotten really close with that individual, and he was an amazing guy, one of the top QA inspectors, one of our good friends, just an amazing person. And he just went off the rails one day while we were there. And I can remember, and it's kind of all fuzzy and weird, but I can remember feeling like we had missed something, and felt like we had
You
not
blamed
served him
yourself.
properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And um, we had really just felt like it was everything was wrong, and we still had the mission to serve, which was also kind of crazy because the rest of the world, or the rest of the population at home in the United States needs us to do our mission and complete and fulfill and do the things we're still required to do. But at the moment, um, none of us really could do that, And so for me personally, because he was my bunkmate, it really kind of felt weird. They had to actually put me on like a watch detail where somebody had to watch me sleep in the area. Um, which I actually don't know if I've ever said that out loud. But yeah, so somebody had to watch me and make sure that I was okay. And so it was either security forces or OSI. I can't remember what their job title was. Um, but they had to come and get all this stuff, and they had to give like question all of us, and they always do an investigation, of course, with any death over in the deployed scenario. And it was just one of those times where it really shook everyone in the unit, and it really kind of shook the mission for a little while. Um, and that's something that changes you. So I don't know if I've ever been the same since then. I kind of
How are you different?
I really feel like after that moment, um, I started to look at life as something that I need to really live. Uh, so I don't know. It just got different, right? Like when I was before that, I felt maybe like a child, and after that, I felt like now this is real. Because I had people die in my life before that, like grandparents and stuff like that, but I was never as close to anyone except for that guy, just because I was around him all the time. So it was just
Right.
closer than normal.
What did you do to yourself? I'm sure there was some guilt because there always is. Even if you're not involved at all, there's always guilt. But what did you do to yourself after he killed himself?
Um, so that's the weird part because uh me and my buddy '09 would just sit in this hallway, and we were still just playing video games, but it didn't feel like we were doing anything. Like we kind of felt like these weird shells. And it took a little while before I actually like went back to the gym and started working out again. And um,
So the
you
gym
know,
is therapy for you.
oh yeah,
And
the
that's why
gym's
you're
always been
doing
that way.
that's why you have the fitness realty is because you want that same therapy for everyone else that it is for you.
Yes. I actually have never thought about it that way, but yeah, that really connects the dots.
Yeah. The gym is
Mhm.
your happy place. You want the world to be a happier place. So it's like, let's go to the gym.
Yes. I have been much happier with the gym. Yes. uh,
I I met another guy very randomly. His name is Enrique, and
mhm,
he actually very good looking kid, athletic. He's got more money than I ever will. Uh times 10.
mhm,
But on the surface he looks like he's got everything going.
mhm.
And then he told me that he went up American Fort Canyon and had everything all set up so that after he shot himself in the head, the car would roll down the hill and go
Oh,
boom, boom, boom.
mhm.
Pulled the trigger, and to his
Well,
dismay, the safety was on.
well,
And so, because that safety was on, I met him, a few weeks ago.
mhm,
But you'd never think that. And the reason I'm telling that story is somebody introduced him to jujitsu and boxing.
mhm.
And he says
Yes.
once the first time that somebody hit him in the face, he
Mhm.
was hooked.
Yep.
So
Yep. Oh, I
I
totally
think,
agree.
yeah, and he's not ex-military, but there must be something to be said for, not necessarily getting hit in the face, but being in a
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I actually was just having this a similar conversation with my hairstylist. And
Your
she's
hairstylist. Do you use the
I
same
know,
one
right?
I do?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I actually just go get it cut, right? But they have this like foil shaver.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, she's super awesome. But she was telling me that she was stepping down from her manager position. Um, and that she just wasn't able to focus on herself, and life was crazy and she was stressed out all the time, and anxiety was just really catching up to her. And I was telling her, I was like, me and you are like on completely opposite ends of that spectrum, because I don't have, like, I have seen what stress looks like, where it's like life death, and if we don't accomplish this, people are going to die. um so I've like had that extreme, and so now when I have regular problems, I'm like, man, these are whatever, it'll be fine. So when I was talking to her though, I could I could relate a little bit with what she was saying. But then I told her, I was like, well, have you ever thought about doing karate? Because right now I'm in karate and I've been taking it for 3 years and just got my black belt 2 weeks ago, which for me was a goal that I had in mind. I just wanted to attain. Um, but I told her, I was like, when I said, have you ever thought about karate? She said, I've never really thought about that, but like the discipline, the forms, the mental like aspect. And I said, yeah, and like you get some cardio, you get to actually hit things and not get in trouble. And and I was like, as adults, like there's a lot of kids that go to this karate studio, and this which kind of brings me to the second person I kind of want to bring up, but um the karate studio is awesome for kids, right? It's great discipline. It teaches them like how to stand in line and talk about how to sit and listen and things like that, and just get more um things that I think old school was really all about, where I think new age thinking is a lot of free spirited things, which is awesome. Creativity is awesome, but we also need some kind of backbone to that.
Discipline.
Anyway, I feel like it's awesome for kids, but I'm looking at adults and I'm like, I think this is actually better for adults because we need an outlet that is, where we can sit down, where we can have our mind kind of pushed, where we can actually do something with our body that's not sitting at a chair or desk, where you can actually have sparring in a controlled environment that actually lets you kind of um, get some of those feelings out, that like us as men, like you said, we're bottling it in.
A way
We
to
just push it all
unload
down.
the trash compactor.
Yeah,
Watch something.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, and this is where I want to bring up the second person in my life right now that's just super beneficial, and a person that I connect with all the time, and that's my karate instructor. His name's Colton. Um, and he just is a person that you can connect with and share things and not be judged. He's had a lot of people judge him in his life, and so he creates this space around him that is like, just come and be you and be whatever you want to be. And he just makes you feel safe, plus he's a fourth degree black belt, so everybody feels safe around him,
Uh-huh.
unless you get on his bad side. you know but anyway, the reason I bring that up is because I was literally just talking to her, and I was like, more people need this outlet as adults. I'm not saying like karate's the place. It could be jujitsu, it could be whatever, but I think people need to go and find that space, even if they don't have time. Like, make an hour a week to do something different, to make that connection with somebody. um a little side note caveat to this, we do a little jujitsu in the karate studio, and so for men to connect with men, jujitsu is pretty dang close, like, if you ever want to feel connected and on a different level than just every average Joe, like handshake or whatever, jujitsu gets you closer to most men than you probably think that you want to be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those areas where you have to overcome, some barriers, mental block barriers. You have to really overcome, like, what can my body do? What can my mind do? And so I've done some jujitsu, and rolling is what it's called, or whatever, if you want to get, or if you want to say that, where you just kind of break down barriers that you thought you had, which frees your mind a little bit. So anyway, I was kind of off on a tangent.
Your instructor, the one who creates a safe zone, you said
Yeah.
he's been criticized in the past. It's funny that I wonder if maybe he had to have been criticized in the past and felt all that pain so that he would know what not to do.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what you feel like when you're around him, what you've learned from him,
Hmm.
uh, who he is and what he makes you.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you how I actually got to that studio, because that kind of fits into his personality. So about 3 years ago, I was sitting on the internet with, like everybody, just kind of wondering, oh, what should I look up today? Like I'm just curious about doing something different with my life. Like what can I do to just, I don't know, create another goal or whatever. I'm always goal oriented. Mine are all right behind my computer. Um, and I was like, man, I've always wanted to try martial arts. I tried like a week of Taekwondo when I was like 24 in North
Mhm.
Carolina, and like never went back. I think I just deployed shortly after that, so maybe that's why I never actually went. But I like went once, and I was like, oh well, I attempted to go, but I wonder what happened there. So in this last 3 years ago, or 3 years ago, I was on the internet and I was like martial arts near me or whatever I did on Google.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I was living in Sandy, so there was a karate studio in Draper, a karate studio in Sandy, and a taekwondo studio like at the border of Draper and Sandy. And so I sent out 3 messages to all 3, um, and I was like, "We'll just see, like, who gets back to me first or whatever they offer, I'll make a decision."
Mhm.
And so Colton, my instructor, he got back to me first. So on the email, he was like, "Hey man, it's awesome. Like, we'd love to have you come in. We do I think it was a 4 week or 6 week free trial. So this would have been like right after Thanksgiving, and that might have been why I was looking at it because I was feeling fat after Thanksgiving."
Yeah, that never happens.
Yeah, right. Yep, we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, 6 weeks free, like that's pretty awesome. And then I asked my oldest boy, and he said he wanted to go down and check it out as well. So I was like, man, 2 people, 6 weeks free, like I can check it out, try it. And so we went to like the instructor lesson or the first intro lesson, and the energy that I could feel from Colton, my instructor, while we went to the intro lesson was just unreal. Like a great environment. A positive atmosphere, and just a place where, like I didn't feel like he was judging me at all. And maybe that's like, oh, he's working on his sales tactic to get everybody in there or whatever. But at the time, I was feeling like it was like just a positive place because my body is not flexible, and I wasn't like doing kicks and punches the correct way. And but I felt safe there, like I felt like I could just be my silly, goofy self and try this new thing. And so um we did the like intro lesson and then one more lesson, and I was like, I'm hooked. I want to sign up for a year. I love this place. I love Colton. Like he was just an amazing person right off the get-go. And so I committed to the 1 year. And so me and my boy went for about 9 months, then he quit. But over the last 3 years, I've really come to know and understand Colton from a personal and a deep level. And for him and how he grew up and everything that he's had in his life to create such an environment where we can just come and be ourselves is incredible. And he would actually be an amazing person to bring onto your channel,
Yeah.
because he just has so many cool things to share, and how he can get kids to see themselves as a bigger and brighter future
Then they do.
is huge. Yeah.
It sounds
I've
like
never.
he can do that for men too.
Oh, 100%, which is why I actually feel like karate is more for adults, like, or it could be, if
Right.
people would take it serious, because people feel like if they watch Cobra Kai or whatever, they think they know what karate looks like, but that's not it.
Wax on, wax off.
Right,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
yeah, I don't think that entertains me. It seems to me that you bought him, not necessarily the boxing or the studio.
Yep.
I
Oh,
know
100%.
I know one individual, Eddie Villa, and I've interviewed him before. I respect him greatly, and he is a
Mhm,
strengths coach, but he is all about be who you are.
mhm,
And just to listen to him give me freedom to be who I am, and that,
mhm,
the only hard part is figuring out who that is.
right,
Once you've got that figured out, the freedom it gives you and the power,
right,
and I know some people, some of them closely, who are like, don't do that, you'll look stupid. And my response immediately in my head is, I'll do it if I want to because that's me and I'm me.
nice.
And yeah, yeah, and then that results in a confidence that everybody wants to be around.
Right. Oh, I totally agree. That part's huge. Confidence in yourself is so big and is as contagious, if not more, than like anger and negative feelings, you know. I feel like it really breaks through and it's like almost like a light just shining down, you know, you like you can actually spread it. It's pretty cool.
It Interesting you use that word. I feel like part of my role is to be a lighthouse, to spread it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
That, I was hitting it right on the
you were
head.
hitting it right on the head. And there's some things that I can spread. There's God's light. There is the freedom of just being who you are.
Right.
Uh, that's very empowering. And I've been the guy who tried to figure out what somebody else wanted out of me, and then tried to be that. And then I would look at them, and I was like, "Did I get it right? Who wants to live that life?"
Right. No, that's not a good way to live, you
So,
know.
how you said your instructor is? What did you call him? What's his name?
His name's Colton.
Colton.
Yeah.
What traits from Colton have you stolen that you're using in your gym?
Um, well, so sometimes when I see him taking time to teach somebody and to actually help them understand, I've tried to adapt that to my own life because a lot of times I've trained a lot of realtors, right, to become successful. But sometimes I don't really actually take the time to be as personable as he can be. And
Mhm.
so I've witnessed him literally help somebody who's, you know, very young or in our teen adult class, um, that's really struggling and really kind of help them feel more confident. And kind of like what you were saying about the self-confidence, like that starts to really bolster up everyone around you. And when you see somebody who is like, let's say they're 12 and they become more self-confident in just their karate line,
Uh-huh.
it kind of creates this karate line that gets stronger because, you know, the person that was not self-confident becomes self-confident and then everyone else kind of ups their game. It's really unique to see. And so I've seen that so many times. And so for me, I've tried to adapt that to my personal life now to be more personable and more engaging with somebody that is asking me questions about how to be a better realtor.
Uh-huh.
Um, but something else that I've really just loved about him is the ability to just really love people. No matter if they screw up, you know, or they are a different type of person or they're doing whatever, you know, like as humans we're always classifying everything and putting everybody into boxes or things into categories because that's just the way the human mind works. But I've just seen him love everyone that's there no matter what they are, you know, or who they are, and it's just amazing to watch, you know, and to see kids that are struggling with everyday life and now they have all these other problems that, you know, me or you might not have grown up with. And to watch him foster a relationship with them about being whoever they are going to be, um, is incredible to watch. So I'm trying to do more of that in my own life, because I think it's vital and it creates that connection that we all need.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing that with kids is vital. Um, Doing it with men is vital. Doing it with
Agreed.
women is vital.
Yep.
We all need that, but especially us men, we suck so bad at uh, disallowing ourselves from connection.
Hmm.
It's nobody's
I
fault but
agree.
our own.
Yeah.
That what you mentioned that doing jujitsu makes a couple of guys close. Is that because of a lot of physical proximity? Because you're punching each other in the face? Because you can see each other's demons coming out? Why is that?
A lot of all of the above. So as men, right, just been told like you can't talk about anything, and you just need to shove it all down. Well, when you're wrapped up with somebody and like let's say they're in your guard, which just means like my legs would be wrapped around them and I'm like holding them down, or they're trying to posture up or whatever. Um, you're in very close proximity. And then there's something that's weird, like you roll around for a little while, um, and you can get tired, right? Most people get tired after rolling, right? Like if you're going all out, most people don't have the capacity to maintain that kind of an environment or that stamina for longer than a minute. I mean, you can watch like street fights are usually over in a minute because they're not trained and they don't know how to like control that.
Right.
And plus like adrenaline kicks in and everything. But honestly, like in a rolling or a grappling environment, if you're really going hard, you can be wiped out in a minute, you know, and that takes you to a different level where um I don't know if things get clearer or if just stuff kind of falls off when you are exhausted. And
Oh.
so I had this moment, and I'll share this real quick. So before I actually started like any jujitsu training, um, me and my instructor Colton, he started some jujitsu. Sorry about that. So he started some jujitsu, and so we started some in the studio. And so he's like, "Hey, let's just kind of roll around for a second. You know, we'll wrestle." And I was like, "Okay, you know, I've done like backyard wrestling as I was growing up. You know, I was never a wrestler or anything,
Hmm.
but I was like, yeah, let's like wrestle." And so me and him, we started on our knees, just like slapped hands, and then started like wrapping up. And I can remember like I thought I was skilled. I got him into a headlock, um, but in jujitsu or in just wrestling or whatever, if you have them in a headlock, but you don't actually have a choke, you don't have a submission. Like they can stay in that headlock until you're tired, which is what he did. And it took like 40 seconds. And I was just like completely gassed. I'm like holding him, cranking down, and I was doing zero things to him. Like he was sitting there breathing normally because I wasn't cutting off his airway or the blood supply to his brain or anything. Like I was just sitting there and I was like squeezing, and just in 40 seconds or 45 seconds, I was just done. So I let go, and he was like, "Well, what happened?" You know, and so after I like took a lot of deep breaths and came around, we really shared this connection right after that where he was just like, "Well, what were you trying, you know, and what were you thinking?" Um and kind of like went into what I was trying to do was just to control him, but I was literally doing zero effort of actual control. Um
Your
and
efforts of
so
control were just wearing you out.
right. Oh yeah,
That doesn't
I
happen
got
in life.
right. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting to have so many different aspects of martial arts and jujitsu in general where you can actually relate that to real life, you know. And so I don't know, in that moment I was like, and this was probably like in the first 2 or 3 months of actually knowing him. In that moment I was like, this felt different, you know, like it was a place where I could actually say something, you know, like have a real conversation. Even if it was just about what we had done in that moment of rolling, but it just felt like I was being more open and vulnerable because I would literally told him, I was like, if this was a real fight, you would have gotten up and just started smashing me in the face, and I would have been able to do nothing because I was tired, you
Right.
know, like completely gone. Like I just like I finished and rolled back and just laid there for a second because I couldn't get up, you know, like I didn't
Yeah.
know what that felt like. And that to me, as men, we don't have a space to get to that point usually because in society, if you start a real fight, you know, that gets you to that point, but you also cause all these things that might have legal ramifications. Where if you go to jujitsu and you're in a controlled environment, you can get to that point of being completely exhausted, but not in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the darkest moment in your life that you're willing to talk about? Have we been there or have we not been there yet?
Yeah. I think the darkest moment was that time in Bagram that I shared. I can't really think of other dark times in my life because after that I became one of the most positive people that I can and not like tooting my own horn or anything, but I've
Go
just
ahead.
tried to become positive after that because I realized that that old adage of you can't change the things that you can't control or whatever. I can't remember what that line is. But I realized that there were so many things outside of my control that I was just going to be positive and have a different attitude about life. And it
Makes
all
sense.
actually stemmed from that. Like I can tell, I've told people this in the past where I really haven't been angry except for 2 times in the last 15 years. And they were both of those times were while I was deployed. But then shortly after that was when my bunkmate committed suicide. And after that, I was just like, life's worth living and I want to do life. I want to live it and I want to be positive about it because I can't change everything else. And so if I'm going to be negative about it, people were going to be negative around me, and that's no way to live. And so I just really changed my mindset after that. And I've had lots of things happen in the past since then that should have been detrimental, should have been like things that people talk about and cry about, and the things like they should be debilitating, but I've just been in the mindset that I couldn't have controlled those things, and so I want to be positive about the outcomes. And if there was something I needed to learn, what was that thing? And how can I learn from it and grow and teach people how to do that?
I think you might have answered my next question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Your darkest moment was your bunkmate committing suicide,
Hmm.
and there are no words to describe what that feels like.
Hmm.
But that's your darkest moment.
Hmm.
How was that a blessing to you?
I think to sum it all up, the blessing that came out of that was the people around that situation felt a more or a deeper gratitude to be here still. Um, and I don't know. The blessing I really feel like was for me, it kind of changed my outlook. Like there was nothing I could have done differently to outweigh that outcome, right? Because he was determined. Um, and that's just the way that the situation went. And so for
You
me afterwards, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, for me afterwards, it was just I can't change any of that. Like if I want to stay positive, I got to keep my mental attitude as positive as possible. And it really stemmed from that day.
Yeah, I think you chose to. I mean, you could have chosen to say, Wow, he was my bunkmate, and I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Therefore, I suck, and I should probably point the gun at my own head." And down that road. You didn't do that.
Hmm. Right.
Instead, you chose the side of light as opposed to darkness, and you're like,
Hmm.
I learned from that event, and I'm going to brighten the universe however I can.
That a lot. I think choosing light just really resonates. I mean, because you can go down the dark path, but that doesn't lead anywhere good. I kind of have some before we wrap up a little bit.
Yeah.
So my buddy '09 that I was there with, 2 times deployed into Afghanistan with him. Um, and I don't know if this came out shortly after um, the incident with my bunkmate, but we always kept saying this afterwards, and I don't know where it actually came from, but we always said, we're gonna go out there today and drink a cup of badass. And that always was like code for you got to turn it around and be positive. And we're gonna rock it today. If killing it today means like we're loading a lot of bombs and that's on target, or we're gonna kick back and go to the gym, or like at that time I think we were in crash recovery, so let's hope there was no crashes that day that we had to work on, like whatever that looked like. We would say drink a cup of badass all the time.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of stuck with us, and then we started to like push that out when we got home around to other people, and it started to kind of like change how people were looking at the day, because most people come into the workplace when they're military like it's going to be a crappy day. They just have this negative outlook the second they walk through the door, and I'm like, you're going to have to be here 12 hours anyways. You might as well make it fun and inviting and have a
Right.
good energy about it, because like you walk out of this place, you're going to get paperwork. You can get court-martialed for leaving your post, or leaving your job detail. So there's nothing you could have changed about your 12-hour day other than your attitude about it. And so we just kind of started sharing that around.
Oh,
Um, and it was kind of fun. Like if you could put that on a bumper sticker right now, that's probably what
that would
we
be,
kind of live by.
you ought to trademark that. Yeah, it's like the Greek Stoics, their philosophy was what happens to you is neither good nor bad. It is.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and how you deal with it is what's good or bad.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I love that drink a cup of badass. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always just said that. Like we would start morning meeting out with that and just kind of rock it. I don't know. It was just a good way to remind everybody, like, let's stay positive, because even through the day, like stuff could happen that was bad, like parts were bad or the jet broke or whatever, like,
Hmm.
no, let's keep cranking.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could have done.
Interviewed a guy who made a fortune twice in his life. First time he was young, and his name is Aaron Walker. I have an interview with him. But
Mhm.
then he hit a guy with his car, and it was found not to be his fault. The guy was an idiot. The guy kind of hit
Mhm.
him, but he died.
Oh wow.
And so Aaron, um, as a result, he didn't choose to be a badass. Instead, he let it ruin him, and he let it ruin him for 5 years.
Oh wow.
And thankfully for him, maybe he had the fortune that he could afford to pay his bills for 5 years.
Oh
But then
wow.
he says that it finally took somebody who cared about him enough to say, "Let's go drink a cup of badass,"
Right.
and get him on his feet and tell him, "Look, today we're going to stop feeling sorry for ourselves and start rocking."
Right. Oh, that's so cool.
So he did, and then he built up another fortune, and he's doing very well, and he is a light for a lot of guys. He's running iron sharpens iron back east somewhere, like in Pennsylvania ish.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. What
Uh
what's unique there, I think, is the person that got him out of that.
huh.
That person is amazing. I mean,
That
like
dude is,
he's also amazing getting out of it himself, but to have a person that saw that and say, "Hey, let's direct this." Oh man, that's so cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
That
I wish
dude
more
is
people had that person in their life.
that dude is a hero times 10. All right. So let's put a plug in for you and your business. How does
Thank you.
somebody get a hold of you?
So the easiest way to get a hold of our company, if you want, you can always call 801-900-6449. That'll give you our office line, and you can get any realtor on our staff if you want to buy or sell a home. If you want me directly, you can always look me up online, Facebook stalk me, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I'm on everything. Just look up TJ, and my last name is Mclelland, Mclelland. I always give my personal cell phone out there. Like if you ever want to just lean on somebody or come and hang out or come and try karate or whatever,
Hmm.
my personal cell phone number is 801-891-5305. And you can literally text me, call me anytime. I always try to have that out there for people, um, just as a resource. So that's the easiest way.
How close to being Colton are you on a scale of 1 to 10, where Colton is a 10? Where are you at?
Yep. Oh man, in karate instruction, I'm like a not even on the scale, and he's a 10. And I actually had this experience. As soon as I got my black belt, he invited me to do a class as the instructor. One was because he was sick, and two, just because he wanted to see how I would do.
Yeah.
And so I went into that class and taught, and I realized how skilled and how sharp his craft is, because I was like, I am not good at this. Like it was a fun class and people learned and we had a good time and there was some good cardio in there, but um, at the level that he does it is just he does it incredibly good. And so,
I'm
but
gonna.
in terms of karate black belt, I mean,
Uh-huh.
he's a fourth degree black belt. So when me and him spar, it's like he's playing mind games with me, and I'm over there like trying to not get hit, and I'm just like, I don't even know what's coming next.
In terms of, let me rephrase the question. When you run into Colton, you find a guy who wants you to be authentic, who is authentic himself, who knows who he is, and is going to try and give you all the tools to be who you are. Um,
Yeah.
Now I'm asking you, how close to Colton are you for this guy? Not in a fighting scenario, but how do you love a guy who has issues? And we all have issues.
Um, to be honest, everybody that calls me or texts me, I've really tried to adapt what Colton kind of does, and which is just being very inviting, and really putting the positive attitude and the atmosphere out there.
Uh,
Um, so that's what I've been doing with my personal life. And so the way I create that relationship with all of my clients, I mean, they almost become family. And hopefully a lot of my past clients can say that if they ever get questioned. But I really try to make it so that if they have a bad credit score or whatever, they're still going to be a human being, and I want to help them achieve their goals in real estate, because that's like the pathway that I've kind of taken, that I just have naturally grinded towards. Um, and I find that I can really develop that relationship with somebody where they'll actually tell me all of the things that I need to know to help them achieve that success that they're looking for. And so I don't
yeah.
know. I'd say Colton will always say that he's always learning, which is really cool. He always thinks that, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but as karate instructors and people who master their craft, they always feel like they're in learning mode, which is
Uh-huh.
really interesting. Like being a fourth degree black belt for him really just means he's continuing to learn. And a lot of these like martial artist masters or senseis or whatever, they honor that they're still a white belt in their mind, right? They're still in a learning mindset. And so I don't know, I just try to adapt that to my lifestyle. And so when I have people come to me and they want to be in our sphere or my circle and they want to connect, I really try to let that happen, and try not to close people off. So I don't know if that answers it in a nutshell. I just like to create that deep connection with people, because um, then they'll actually tell me all the information that I need to help them become successful or achieve their goal.
Yeah. I think we could go down the road of what it means to be a white belt, but that might be another day.
Yeah, you should
When you're
definitely ask Colt. You should ask Colton that.
But to me, it means that you're coming to me, and I'm not better than you. I am here to serve.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you, TJ.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to say how grateful I am that you're out there trying to do this type of work. Because we just all need it, as adults and as men especially. There's not really a lot of places where we can connect and feel vulnerable, and also share all the things that we want to talk about. Like what you had said, what manalizing is talking about the things that we don't talk about. um I think we need more of that, and so I'm just very grateful about what you're doing. And um I think that you're on a pathway to help more and more people and become that lighthouse and share that light and spread it, which I think is important. So thank you.
You the man, sir.
Thank you.